And if you have a phone or something extra, you can actually see it live, but turn down the sound. Okay.
Really funny.
Funny ending.
Yes, that was a surprise chord there. Right, that's the end of a love affair.
Oh, that's Jamie Tate. I was trying to look
That's
to
right.
see who that was. I didn't, I haven't seen him for so long. He looks older.
He is older. I know Jamie's great though. Boy, he's really done well. I think of him as one of the younger guys because he was a grad student at USC.
Oh,
I was teaching there, but he I went to his birthday party. I don't know, a year or so ago, and he's 40. So
oh my God, how did that happen?
I consider him a veteran now, not one of the new guys.
Damn, he
He's
was just
busy.
he was just 20 a minute ago.
I know he's super busy guy.
Oh yeah, he's good. I should talk to him too because he's done so much over the last 20 years.
Definitely, he's doing a whole lot of stuff, producing. Also, he's multi-talented guy. In fact, when I used to tell some of the guitar guys, I said, "Watch the way this guy acts. Watch Jamie Tate. I know he's going to be super successful. He's got all the. I mean, not only can he play, and he's gotten 100 times better now than he was then, even just because of his experience. Obviously, 20 years or 15 years, whatever it's been.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, he just knew how to handle people and so forth. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. He's
sometimes
really
studying certain
smart.
people can be helpful.
Of course, we couldn't see the great bass player John Leftwich.
Yeah, too bad I was in front of him. I love John. He's also one of my
Yeah,
favorite
man, you're
musicians.
always hogging the spotlight, man.
Yeah, I just
You're
that
so
stage
humble.
that stage was really hard to get a camera shot of everybody. It was kind of narrow.
Right, right.
Uh, there when we were doing it, they were doing it Viva, and that was a
Hey,
guitar night, a Pisano guitar night, by the way, for anybody that might not
yeah,
have
we're gonna
that. But
talk. We're
one
gonna
of the
talk a
nights
lot
Sean
about
couldn't
that.
make it. Yeah. What's that?
Yeah, we're gonna talk a lot about that. But first, I want to introduce you, ladies and gentlemen. This is my friend, nicest guy in the world, and a beautiful player, Pat Kelley. Pat Kelley.
You.
I just wanted to give that a little
A nice word too.
He's a teacher, a composer, an engineer, an arranger. He's everything, and just we're going to find out more about him. He's had a long career, and he's a big part of the music community here, but also a big part of the jazz community, and definitely a part of the guitar community. There's a major guitar community in LA, and a lot of it has to do with John Pisano, who is just the most elegant, gorgeous guitar player who played with so many people over the years and is now 89. And and he's had guitar night, which is one night, every week for 30 years,
22 years.
22 years.
Yeah.
And it's moved around a little bit, but it's pretty pretty, consistent, and it's been really wonderful. What he'll do normally is he'll invite a guitar player and he'll have a bass player and a drummer, and it always feels good. I was online with Catalina yesterday, from Catalina's Jazz Club, and she was really talking about how the feeling of jazz musicians, and how it's always a party. That's what people want. The musicians, they want to have a good time, they want to play, they want to laugh together and hug each other. And I think the guitar community is like that here.
Yeah, and this jazz guitar community, super supportive of. It seems like most of the players of each other, very supportive, and go out and. I mentioned you that clip before. Barry Zweig was right in the front row, and I could hear his voice like numerous times during that. I mean, I know to listen for it, but I could hear him just rooting us on and go, "Oh, that's great!" So
I heard that too.
pretty cool, to.
Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, Pat and I wanted to, pay some tribute today to Barry Zweig, who passed away about 2 months ago. Well, right before the corona kind of blew up, and just a super super dear heart. Maybe we'll listen a little later to something that he did too. A really incredible player and a real dear heart, and definitely part of the jazz guitar community.
Yeah, I used to quite a few years ago call him up on the phone sometimes. We just talk. I say, "Hey, what chord changes do you play on this song?" You know, and because there'd be some tune where people maybe play a lot of different things, you know, different ways to go on it. We talk. He was always just like totally happy to talk about all that stuff forever. You know, it's great.
I
So,
know. I used to actually call him up and ask him if he could. Well, it would always start like, "Do you like this particular passage? What chords would you think?" And then he would end up like doing the whole song and sending it to
yeah,
me because he was fast. He loved it. You know, he loved the whole process of it, right?
yes, yeah, and sharing all
Yeah,
those ideas and
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Great person. So, so Pat, well, first of all, before we go on too much farther, so this cut that we were listening to, that was from a guitar night, but John Pisano couldn't be there. So he hired Frank or you or both of you or
Yeah, it was what I forgot what the reason was. A rare night. There were, John was going through something. I can't remember. He hurt his leg one time for a minute, and that might have been one of those. I forgot what that was. But anyway, so Frank and I did it together. Where John is normally always playing with whoever the guest is. You know,
right, right.
99% of the time. So
Yeah. And this night was at Viva Cantina, which was a really quirky room in Burbank near
yeah.
the studios, and I mean the room wasn't bad. It was the food was terrible, but they played great, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of a pretty unanimous that for most.
Yeah,
That's
uh,
funny.
but yeah, it was so that was that night, and I was just curious. I know there's no rule for this, and I know as a singer what happens to me, but I was just curious. I was watching you there when Frank was soloing, and it looked. My question is, who do you focus on in those situations? Do you focus on Frank, or do you focus on connecting with the bass and the drums?
Well, I think you kind of have to do both. I mean, I want to for sure be listening to the soloists because they're trying to lead it in some direction, probably, and uh, so I want to, you know, make sure I'm not stepping all over what they're doing, or that I'm playing at the right volume, hopefully, most of the time, so I'm not drowning them out. But of course, yeah, the bass and drums too. You know, I mean, it's kind of hard if you're just like immersed in it to not just sort of be in the middle of the whole thing in a way. But yeah, I'm totally listening to the want to listen to the soloist too.
Yeah. I guess I was asking because watching, it's like, and maybe because I'm experienced in it too, but watching I could almost see when you shifted your attention. Not that you looked, but you can see sometimes music. You can almost see the universe shifting the attention to the bass player and the drummer.
Yeah, yeah. There's no, I don't see any way to really explain that or define some of these little things like that to just come from when you played a lot with a lot of different musicians over years and certain things that just kind of start to happen intuitively in a way, I suppose, if when we're lucky and things all work out.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I don't know if you know this, Pat, but you're actually one of my favorite guitar players.
Wow, we
Um,
haven't worked much together.
I know. We haven't played that much together, but every time I hear you, I love it. It's kind of the love I feel like when I listen to Jim Hall, or it's this quality. It's a real beautiful quality that you have. Your sense of timing and your melodic, uh, and the way that your lines come out, and your sense of balance as far as dynamics. It's really beautiful.
I really appreciate that. That means everything.
Yeah. Um, and uh, um, sorry, I'm just looking at my thinking.
Well, you've only done 88 of these shows, right?
I know, I know.
Number 88. That's
Yeah.
unbelievable. You need an award for that.
Thank you.
Really.
Okay, so actually, first, I want to know, am I right that you came from LA?
You say came from LA?
Yeah, or where did you grow up?
No, I grew up in Tulsa. I grew
Oh,
up in Tulsa,
right.
Oklahoma.
We talked about that
Yes, we
because
did. In fact,
yeah,
we were going to do this show on Juneteenth,
right.
except for I just felt like it's going to be too crazy a day that day, and so we decided to postpone it. So,
Yes, thank you for bringing my attention to that.
yeah, yeah,
That
I
was
grew up there and moved to California when I was just shy of 21 years old. Uh,
uh-huh.
uh, so I've been here quite a long time now.
So were you like a musical child or what?
Yeah, absolutely. I knew I wanted to be a serious musician easily since I was 7 or 6 years old. I mean, I
Wow.
started playing when I was about 5. I wanted to play. My dad got me a ukulele when I was 4, and I remember the first song I ever learned. He showed me how to read these box diagrams, like all guitar books and ukulele books have, and so forth. And I learned this tune, "My Buddy." I
Yeah.
remember that was in this ukulele book. I remember. I mean, barely remember that. It's probably about 5, or something. But I started playing guitar, sometime probably before I was 6 too. My dad had it's an interesting little guitar he had that he bought when he was a kid, I think for 50 cents or something like that in the 30s.
Wow.
And he fixed it up. He shaved the bridge down a little bit and put nylon strings on it. So it'd be maybe a little easier to play at first. And that was the first guitar I have, which now is in a glass container in the Oklahoma Jazz Hall of Fame, which I was inducted in back in 2003.
Oh,
And
wow.
I donated that guitar to them. It's with a couple other things. So I figured, yeah, I mean, I wasn't ever going to really play it again, but that's guitar it started on. And I was a serious little kid. I mean, all my friends know, I mean, I wanted to spend all my time practicing and playing the guitar,
Yeah.
so I got a real early start. And by the time I moved to California, I'd already done hundreds of gigs. I mean, probably, but because I started doing that so young.
Yeah. When was your first gig?
Well, the very first band I ever started was in 6th grade. We were called the Telstars. Had another guitar player named Jerry Smith, who still lives in Tulsa. Haven't seen him in quite a while. And my brother played drums. So I've always been around drums also. And we did Ventures tunes and popular stuff. Then those were great. That was great stuff to learn how to play the guitar with, because they weren't that hard to play. I mean, you could learn to play those as a kid. I wasn't going to jump right into the song Frank and I just played at 6 years old. But we mostly with that they just played a few talent shows and things like that. When I was in 8th grade, I started what was it turned out to be a pretty serious band. It was called Pat and the Panthers, and my best buddy Monty Bird, who we're still like brothers, he was in that band. Also joined that, so I've known him, for 50 years. So but we played teen gigs and various different kinds of gigs with that band. I think if we'd been in LA, that band could have ended up being a kid band, because we had made a couple changes in it, but the main bulk of that band, we had like 4 guys that could sing well, and it was a good
Oh,
looking band, and we were fun. We had 2 sets of brothers in the band, Monty and his brother David. But we played also, this is an interesting where my dad started managing our band. So
oh,
he drove us around. Yeah, he had a pickup truck that he painted Pat and the Panthers on the side of. And it was like our band. He was
oh.
amazing. My dad loved doing that, taking us everywhere. And we played a couple of clubs. We were still like teenagers. Somehow booked us into this place called, I still remember the name of it, the Casa del Gato, I think it was. And it was a black uh, club almost exclusively. It was, and I don't know how he got us young twerps in there, these little kids, but they really dug us. That was a turning point in that band, though, because we had my dad and Monty's dad also. They knew, hey, we're going to be we're going to be musicians. We're going to be playing places where there's drinking sometimes, and this and that, and parties and things like that. My dad just said, yeah, you just got to learn how to do the right things, and you're fine. So we had a couple of member changes in that band at that time because two of the dads didn't want their kids to be around anything like that. So that's when my brother and Monty's brother came in. But anyway, that was a fun band, and I must say that I played a lot of different gigs. I played Carnegie Hall 4 times and all kinds of incredible venues, and nothing has ever been any more fun than probably the first time we played one of those teen dances with that band and all the girls out there loving us and everybody else. And that was about as much fun as anything. When you're getting started like that, it's so exciting, that it's like, you get dull out to things after you've done like a million gigs, but I joined, eventually Monty and his brother moved away because their dad got transferred to another town, and that band sort of went into become a trio, and the style of music was changing, so we started doing a lot of Hendrix and Cream and all kinds of other Doors, and even had an organ player on a Farfisa for a little while, joined the band, but eventually at 16, I got asked to join this band, a really established band. They're a 9-piece group with a singer out front, soul band called the Soul Section. Really good band, 4 horns, and that band worked all the time. I was still in high school. We're playing nightclubs and sorority and fraternity dances that were just about like Animal House.
Wow.
And all kinds of stuff like that. So that was and then it just kind of went on from there, with several other bands there before I even moved to California.
Wow, sounds like a movie.
Yeah, I sometimes feel like that. I sometimes feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world, just the way things have somehow lined up through the years. So
you said you played 4 times at Carnegie Hall. What did you play there with?
Well, I played there. Well, let's see. I played there with Melissa Manchester, first time, I think, quite a long time ago. Ronnie Laws, George Benson, Natalie Cole. I know I played there at least 4 times with those 4 people. I think that's the only time, sometimes things become a jumble, sort of.
So you played with George Benson. Was he playing guitar as well? And he just
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I get a lot of mileage out of that gig, obviously, because I played with George for about 5 years, and we toured all over the world. He did a lot of festivals in Europe and Asia and all over the place as well as here. So that was incredible. Yeah, he played guitar too. He had a few songs that he just sang, but there were a lot of rhythm guitar parts and things too that earlier records. He had a lot of hits, in the 80s and 90s, and a lot of times Steve Lukather or Lee Ritenour or somebody might have played on the record or something at that time, and the rhythm parts. And I sang in his band too, because I've always been a singer too.
Yeah, I don't think I knew that you were a singer.
Yeah, I've been working on that a lot more, actually, because my focus right now is solo guitar and singing. That's kind of what I want to do more than anything else right now. Is just a guitar, no tracks, no looping, none of that stuff. Just me and a 6-string guitar and my voice. And so I do instrumental things, but I've been trying to work up more of vocal tunes too, because it's kind of tough, if you're doing a solo gig, you've got to be a little bit entertaining, or everything. If you can't play a million jazz standards that are medium tempo with a lot of blowing, or it starts to sound like the same thing to most people. So mixing it up, I like a lot of what Chet Baker did, where he didn't really sacrifice being an instrumentalist either, you know. So on some of these tunes, I'll play it instrumentally and then sing a verse, you know, like he did, or something, you know, not to try to sound like him, but
Yeah.
just to employ both of those things, being an instrumentalist and also a singer.
Yeah, I hope you'll feel good about doing that on during this time, showing us
Yeah,
one.
maybe I'll sing you a song. Who
Yeah,
knows?
that would be great. I didn't before I started working more with John Leftwich last year. I'd always worked with him. I didn't remember him being a singer. He's a really good singer.
A pretty good singer. Yeah, I know. I
Yeah.
haven't heard him that much, but when I have, I can tell. Yeah, he can sing.
Yeah, and he did that a lot in his younger years. Yeah, I talked. I don't know if you remember Michael Patterson. He was about 17 years ago. He moved to New York, but he was a piano player and arranger. Um, you know,
Yeah, he was on your show, right? Just
yeah,
a
yeah,
couple of days ago or so.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I had no, I don't think I had any idea that he had actually gone to college for like a vocal degree. And
Well,
I was
yeah.
like, what? Where was I? I just did not know that at all. I guess I was in Singerland, Which, by the way, do you know that for years I have hung around guitar players. So what I recognize is guitar land. So when a guitarist can be like talking to you and practicing, his,
Oh yeah.
and really he's in guitar land.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
a whole little universe that he's
Oh.
in
Oh
there.
no. Yeah, you get where you can do that. I mean, if you play a lot, I play a lot of over the years at the NAMM show for Matchless Amplifiers, and
Right, right.
for like a number of years I played for them, and I'll just stand there and play, solo guitar stuff while talking to people all day long. I don't know if you can concentrate quite the same way, but yeah, so much of the stuff just sort of gets under your fingers where you
Yeah.
almost don't have to think about it much.
The other funny thing that I always say about guitar players, jazz guitar players anyway, is no matter how old you are, you could be 89. When you see another guitar player, you start talking about a new voicing that you found.
89, yeah, like Pisano, he cracks me up. He is really funny sometimes. He'll we'll be talking. If I get on the phone with him, we might be on the phone for 45 minutes, but he'll say stuff like, I've been working on this picking thing. I think I got this thing together. And I'm laughing. I go, yeah, all right, it's about time. No, he totally got it together already, but he's still always,
Yeah, I
looking
just talked. I
for.
talked to them yesterday, actually.
Oh, you did? All right, cool.
They were doing pretty good. He has I forget what that's called, plantasia or something on his foot thing.
Oh, yeah.
He's going through that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, but other than that, he sounded great actually. Really
Yeah.
good. Yeah. By the way, Mark Carter apparently knows you. He says, "Hey,
Oh
he's
man,
here."
I've known Mark for years, clear back to Tulsa. He's a Tulsa boy too, but he's been out here a long time. Great guitar player and all that. Hi, Mark.
um, your wife sings too, right?
Yeah, she's a really good singer. Got a really good voice, and we sometimes play some tunes together. Not often enough, actually. We made a couple of really good records though that were kids' records.
Oh,
Yeah, a few years ago, she started. Well, I have a daughter that's 24 now. So when she was, in the oven there, Francie started writing some tunes, and we ended up making a couple of really really good records. That adults I think usually like listen to too. They weren't like really dumb kids records that you couldn't stand to listen to.
yeah.
Had some great musicians on it and all that, and so that was a lot of fun.
Cool. Um, let's play one of your songs.
What are
Uh,
you thinking?
okay, so you sent me You in the Night, Jardin d'Hiver, Off
Well,
Broadway, Viva Blues, Steel Guitar.
let's see what. Okay, since we talked about George Benson, maybe play the Benson clip, and this is like this is from the 90s. And I have kind of a really different guitar sound on this because, you know, I didn't want to try to sound like George necessarily. So I'm playing with more of an overdrive sound. There were back in the day, I played a lot more guitar too. That was more distortion guitar because we were all going through the fusion and funk things and all that stuff too. So, but this is kind of a fun clip that I happen to have a solo on. So I thought I'd put that on there. I think we're in Japan someplace.
Oh, cool. Okay. Let's see. Share my screen so that people can see it. Big. Okay, here we go.
There's wah-wah guitar going here too.
Sorry, what did you say?
And I have some serious wah-wah guitar going here in the background.
Oh, cool. Oh, you were so young, man. You were so young and so cute. Yeah, man. Woo, man. Oh man, that was awesome. Jeez. God, that was a really great time for him. Wow, he sounded great, and your solo was
Oh,
great. And he looked very happy, like very generous.
well, yeah, George's incredible entertainer. He always looked happy like that. He was very uh, attentive to his audience, and yeah, super nice guy too. Treated everybody, the sound people like that. He was always respectful for them. Never got bugged about people coming up to him either. Places, like some artists kind of get, he was
Yeah.
always like totally cool with that. Somebody approached him or whatever somewhere. We were traveling. So, yeah,
Nice.
respect him for that too.
Francie said, those were super fun days. I was lucky to have joined Pat on the road with George in England, Scotland, and Australia. Pat tore it up every night.
Well, we had one really fun trip when she was over there on that particular trip, and we took some of the guys flew, I think, and some of us took the train. We had the down to where we were down to Birmingham or somewhere. I forgot exactly where it was we were going, but it was kind of a long train ride. And George was hilarious. He went on the train also, and he had bought the Sherlock Holmes hat. He was wearing the whole time, and holding court on talking to everybody. It was really funny, talking in an English accent, and he can be pretty funny sometimes.
So, just curious, I know there's hundreds of gigs that you had, but how did you get that gig? And also, why did it end?
Well, yeah, because George, man, he keeps people in the band forever. It's unbelievable how long some of the people have played in his band. He's only had 3 guitar players, I think, since Phil Upchurch, going clear back to the 70s, and then Mike O'Neill, and then Mike left, and I came on. So I got that gig. I hadn't even met George. I had worked for a couple other artists that were managed by Ken Fritz and Dennis Herner. They were George's managers. And I'd done a Randy Crawford tour. They handled her, and a couple other people. I had a couple of cool tours with her. So they knew me, and I knew all the guys in the band too. You sort of get in circulation. David Garfield was on piano, David Witham on other synth at that time, and I didn't know Stanley Banks because the bass player, he lived in New York and so forth. But I was kind of just in the scene so I didn't have to audition or anything. Mike O'Neill wanted to leave. I think he was going to have a baby, he and his wife, and decided to leave the gig. He came back to that after me, by the way, and said he's still doing it. He's got like 20 something years on the gig.
Oh, wow.
Amazing guitar player too, Mike's.
Wow.
But anyway, so the very first gig that I had was in Lisbon, Portugal. I'd gotten together with Mike O'Neill, and he went over these tunes on me. There really wasn't. George didn't have much of any charts, and maybe a few little sketch out things. It was mostly, I had to learn background vocal parts too, because Mike had been singing, and I was going to be one of the background vocal singers too. So we went over that, and I just basically shedded all the records and memorized all the tunes and stuff. So when I showed up on the gig over there, I met George at Soundcheck the first time at the gig, and we were in Portugal, so, but if it hadn't worked out, I'm sure I'd been gone in a minute. But I got along great with George. I think he really liked me a lot, and Stanley Banks liked me a lot. Always thought I could really groove, and he was really kind of particular about that too. We had that was Jerry Brown on drums in that particular video. I think he was playing on the gig already, and when I started doing it. Now, when I leaving the gig, I'd been doing it already for I think almost 5 years, and it was just my choice to do it. I just sort of, for one thing, Francie and I were wanting to have a child at that time. I mean, she wasn't pregnant, but we were okay, ready. Let's try to do this, and I just decided, as much and as great as the gig is and everything, I kind of don't want my entire career to be that. I mean, as much as George was one of my idols. I mean, as most guitar players feel like that around here, So it just, once we got done with the touring season, which is heavier in the summer, like most people, and he was totally cool about it, totally understood. Yeah, I've had a couple of different gigs that have kind of been like that. I just sort of felt like, it was great. I want to leave while things are really good. I don't want to get burned out on it. I don't want to have a bad attitude on the gig or feel like, oh, I've done this too long and I'm just, didn't want to get feeling like that. So it just, that's where, and then to my surprise, by this time, well, Mike said, okay, I'll come back. I subbed a couple of times after that. Mike's called me 2 or 3 times where I've gone into sub, but that's not real easy because it's got a lot of new tunes, and then you have to try to remember everything, that I've forgotten. So that was a tremendous experience. So, I mean, no doubt.
Yeah, boy, that was really grooving. God damn. Yeah. Wow.
Well, it was always a kick-ass band. I mean, we had a lot of good players to do that. I mean, most of the same guys stayed. Garfield left for a while, and Dave Witham went over to the acoustic piano chair. They switched places, and Tom Hall from Detroit, really great guy on the synth stuff. He used to one of the best at really doing that on the synth, and he liked doing that. So I think Garfield's gone back and forth a number of times, switching back and forth. But Stanley Banks, bass player, he was playing with George before Breezin' hit in 1976. I mean, they were doing the, low club circuit, and all of a sudden they're riding in limousines the next week, almost, when that record came out, that record sold 10, 12 million records, so that launched George. There's only one vocal song on that record too, Breezin'. This Masquerade is the only, all the rest of it's instrumental, but that became such a big hit. And, after that, he had a lot of vocal hits, Turn Your Love Around.
I was in the audience at his first vocal gig. I don't know if you were playing with him at that time. Must have been, let's see.
Well,
I guess it was the late 70s because it was at the Roxy, and Al Jarreau opened for him.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I wouldn't have been playing with him then. Phil Upchurch was probably playing with him then.
Yeah. I just remember. Okay, so Al, of course, was definitely getting more well known, but he was opening for him. So, and then George came out, and he was kind of shy, and he started singing, and every woman in the audience, you could audibly hear a sigh happening. It was really funny. It was like, oh, whoa.
Oh no, and he, as much as he's like bad this guitar player, I mean, he loves to sing to those women like that. I mean, that was, he probably liked doing that as much as playing the guitar. It's about, and he was amazing at it. I mean, he'd always deliver it like it was first time he's ever done it. I mean, that's really hard to do. Where you go out there and you make a song you played a million times fresh, like this Masquerade. This was kind of rare for him, but he used to play like the exact solo that he played on the record. It had a scat thing with it and stuff. And I asked him one time about that. He said, brother, I used to go out there and improvise on that, and then people would say, why didn't you play this Masquerade? So they were so used to hearing that I guess that was like part of the song. So anyway.
That makes sense. I mean, yeah, I often think about that. I saw James Taylor last year at the Bowl, and it was a truly great concert.
I've
really
seen him a couple of times live, yeah.
Yeah, but the thing was, he sang every, I mean, not every song, but so many songs that the whole audience was singing with him. But it was almost as if he was a jazz singer, right? Because the band was kind of jazz musicians, and and even though he stayed true to the song, he also, there was a flexibility in it too. So it was, for me, it was satisfying, and I'm sure for the crowd it was satisfying too.
Oh, James, yeah, boy, to be able to go out there and just play one known song after another, it's got to be so great.
Yeah, really, really
great live. I've seen him a couple times, and he's, boy, for quite a few years, he's had like such a great band. I mean, some of the best guys you could possibly get.
Yeah. You have a few hellos. Mary Barrow, she says, great
hi, Mary.
To hear you. And Greg Karukas, he said, I saw George at a club in D.C. in the late 75, 76. First time I met Ronnie Foster on keys.
Yeah. I saw a little bit of Greg's interview with you. didn't get to see the whole thing, but yeah, Greg's a great guy, great talent. Actually, I did a song, put together a new song here in my studio since this COVID shut down, and sent it over to Greg, and he put a beautiful piano part on it. I haven't posted that or anything yet. I've got to do something with that, but it's an instrumental tune. But he played a great solo on it, and also great accompaniment. He's just got really great sense of musicianship, all the way around. Pretty much know whatever you're doing. So.
Yeah, it was really enjoyable talking with him. I mean, I know everybody, right? But it's not often that I talk to everybody for 2 hours, you
Yeah,
know.
that's a long
So
time.
I
Yeah.
mean, even my husband, I had my husband on because he was a lighting board operator on the Tonight Show, and
Oh,
he was filling in for somebody for me, and uh, I found out stuff that I didn't know about him, but I haven't known him. I mean, I've known him for 18 years, but I didn't know him for 30 or 40 years, and that's a lot of. He
yeah.
was on that show for 20 years, so every
Wow.
day there's somebody different and lots of stories, lots of experiences.
Yeah. What show was he doing again?
The Tonight Show.
Oh, the Tonight Show. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you were probably on that, right?
Yeah. I've been on there several times. I think with different people over the years as well.
Yeah, he was probably responsible for lighting you.
Yeah.
Didn't really see him too much. You might have seen him, but he was um, above the stage and a little bit further back was well, behind the stage and above there was a whole row of like small offices, and that's where the band you might have hung out, like the green room kind of thing, or you might have been in the special green room, which I think was downstairs, um, but he was upstairs, and he had a small room where he operated the board, and he did most of his work there, so he didn't necessarily see the bands, I mean, face
Yeah.
to face, unless they came by and hung out in his room, which a lot of people did. But anyway.
I don't remember what it looked like down there. It's been been too long. But
Yeah.
you probably know that I played on the Merv Griffin show.
Oh no, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, I was like for about almost 5 years. The last
Oh,
5 years of that show, also where we were backing up all kinds of people, and I mean that was a real honor. The guys that went before me in that band were Herb Ellis, uh, Jim Hall, and Mundell Lowe. I replaced Mundell Lowe, which I always felt really bad about, actually, because they wanted to get like kind of a younger band, and I always figured, oh man, Plaz and Jack Sheldon probably, I don't know if they like that, but they were always super nice to us and everything, to me, but they got a couple, switched off and kind of wanted to be able to do a few younger things, so I even remember reading an article. Herb Ellis was, oh, they got some guy with a Stratocaster on there now, because I was at that time, they were trying to do. Mort Lindsay was still the musical director. He always had been that, because that show ran for over 20 years. It started in New York.
that's amazing because it was a long time ago, but people don't really talk about the Merv Griffin show anymore. But it was a great show.
Oh man, we backed up so many different people on there. Because they used to have. You never see this much anymore, but we played with Lionel Hampton on there. We played with Buddy Rich, John Faddis, like all kinds of musicians that came on. There was somebody just posted a clip like a month or so back that I hadn't even seen, with John Faddis on, where we play a rhythm changes tune that was such an unbelievably fast tempo that thank God I didn't have to solo on it. And he and Jack Sheldon just blazed it,
Look it up.
like almost too fast to play. But that was there were some really good things on there, and that show too. Like I'll tell you a funny little thing about that show. I mean, Merv was great. He loved the band and stuff because he came from being a musician, and he was really personable and all that. And but anyway, we were always kidding around with him. Let us sing with you, And so one day, Mort Lindsay, the musical director, he comes in with an arrangement, like a harmony arrangement for vocals of I think it was a 40s tunes. I think Cheek to Cheek. I can't remember. There were like about 3 tunes or so involved in it. So some of the rest of us, Reggie McBride was playing bass in the band by this time. Larry Klein did it when I first started. Then he married Joni Mitchell and left the band at that point. But and Reggie came on, so he could sing. And Chris Ryan was the other key second. They had gotten a synth player in the band at this time to do some new, keyboard player. Chris Ryan is also a great piano player. And then Bob Moore, who was the librarian, also was a singer, so they brought him on. So we went out and we performed this song, and Merv just calls us the Merv tones, kind of off the. So they get hundreds of letters from people loving the Merv tones. So we start doing more of these shows. We probably did about 20 shows where we would pre-record the music during the rehearsal so that we could go out and then sing with this, and it was hysterical. So it was a lot of fun, and he even flew us up to his place in Carmel one time on his private plane so we could rehearse for the Coconut Ballroom show. This is when his show was about to end. He was gonna wrap the show up. Kind of, he wanted to do that. He'd been doing it so long, and he had made a fortune from selling stuff, some of his entities. And anyway, so he tried to get this show off the ground, the Coconut Ballroom. We went to, God, I forgot where it was. We recorded at a huge place and a gigantic setup, great band, big band, with all the best guys in town and everything like that. And the Merv Tones were going to be one of the recurring guests on the show. Alan Kaplan posted a video of it once, and it's still up on YouTube, of us singing the Merv Tones, singing. I can't remember if it's on my website or not, but it's anyway. There was one. That was a performance that we did from the pilot, and for some reason, I guess he couldn't get it off the ground at that time. That kind of show. It was going to be like a sort of I think there were going to be dancers and stuff like Lawrence Welk, except the music was going to be a lot hipper and everything. So anyway, those are some pretty good.
Sorry, hold on. Sorry, that was George Benson.
Took a rehearsal from a Caribbean.
I don't know why that's still there, the George Benson thing. So I was looking the Merv Tones, but the Mel Tones came up.
That's a different thing.
I wonder, is it, you think?
Let's see, how would, trying to think how you'd find that. Let's see.
Is it Merv Tone?
Coconut Ballroom or something, maybe that, I don't know. Yeah, I'll have to see where that video exists.
Coconut Ballroom. Okay, I'm looking at that. Alan Kaplan with Merv Griffin. Would that be it?
That's probably it. Yeah, he may have posted more than one. He may have posted some without us, but see if we're on there as singers.
It says. So let's see.
We have these white dinner jackets on.
We hope you have a great time. You're going to hear the best songs of the 1940s. And let me bring out some of the guys in the band here. These are the Merv Tones, and we have a song for you.
Oh my God.
Gentlemen, you ready?
Oh my God, this is great.
I know it's raining, but I'm not complaining. This kind of weather keeps us together. Rain, let us cuddle while it rains. There's no reason to complain if she's with you. A chance to while away a dreamy afternoon, a lovely peaceful afternoon. No one can see us. Rain, it's so cozy in the rain. There's no reason to complain if she's with you to hold your hand. And there it's 10 to 1, you'll kiss her in the rain. Rain, rain. When's it gonna stop? Someone get 'em up. You won't mind the stormy skies if only you could realize it. Every time that it rains pennies from heaven. Moona, moona, don't you know each cloud contains pennies from heaven? All the moona, you'll find your fortune falling all over town. Be sure that your umbrella is upside down. Trade 'em for a package of sunshine and flowers. If you want the things you love, you must have showers. So when you hear it thunder, don't run under a tree. There'll be pennies from heaven for you and me and Alan Kaplan. So when you hear it thunder, don't run under a tree. There'll be pennies from heaven. There'll be dollars on dewdrops. Pennies from heaven for you and me. It's raining, it's pouring, the old man is snoring. Chris, Pat, Bobby, Reggie, thank you.
That's great. That's
We hope
really
you have a
fun. That's really fun.
Yeah, that was a fun, fun thing. We got ASCAP. I mean, we got more pay for doing all those singing things. I mean, not ASCAP, but the singers. stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, that was really cool. So,
Uh,
by the way, who was that girl singer in the background?
Oh, that was Mickey Ryan. Actually, that's I don't know if she continued around. It was Chris Ryan's sister. He was one of the guy next to me, the keyboard player. And
Yeah.
so that was John Guerin on drums and Chuck Berghofer on bass.
Wondering,
Rick Baptist was the lead trumpet. I mean, it's a great band, all the cats. You know, I mean.
yeah, and Alan sounded great.
Oh yeah.
Plaz, I saw Plaz there.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really funny. That's just great. I mean, that's going back, man.
That's the '80s. That was earlier than that George thing.
You were in your 20s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The reason I know that is because I was
early 30s. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how long Merv Griffin went after this, but when I was 21, I was working at Dante's as a waitress, and and I guess Jack Sheldon was around at that time, and he was really. I mean, that's how we knew. Well, that's how I knew about Jack Sheldon first, because he was on the Merv Griffin show.
Yeah.
And Ann was a singer, and
And comedian.
he used to play at Dante's a lot at that time. Of course, with Ross Tompkins. Needless to say, he and Ross were like buddies forever.
Yeah.
They used to later on, in probably 20 years ago or so, they used to go out every day and go find some cheap food place to eat at. They it was like a hobby with them. They would find, some kind of cheap. It didn't matter if it was a food stand or a restaurant. It had to be cheap.
As long as it's cheap.
That was probably more Marty's doing than Ross is doing.
Yeah.
God, there you. I mean, you have so many experiences. You said before you said that there were a few times that you felt like you had worked on something long enough that you wanted to move on. What were some of the other gigs like that?
Uh, well, Melissa Manchester gig was like that. I toured with her for about 2.5 years, I think, and that was even a little bit before that, a little bit earlier than that Merv thing. I wasn't for sure in my 20s then, and she was a big artist then,
Yeah,
and terrific talent, and obviously great singer and
yeah,
songwriter.
yeah, amazing. She's
And
so prolific.
yeah, she was doing. She sort of laid back, I think, and dropped out a little bit because she had some kids and kind of decided to sort of drop out of. But yeah, she had a pretty big career at that time, and yeah, some good people in the band too. You know, we did
Yeah.
a lot of fun things. Some of the bus traveling too, with those big fancy buses. You know, like some of the groups use. Those were always kind of. I always sort of liked that. It was fun.
Was there a period of time where you basically just kind of in general stopped being on the road?
Yeah, for sure. Right after George, actually, well, even through doing that, you know, there was a lot of stuff going on in town. I mean, uh, but when Francie got pregnant and we were and Katie was born, then I had done a lot of traveling. I've been, you know, on tour with with a lot of people, and done a lot of that, and so I kind of wanted to be around and not miss too. I turned down a few road gigs, but coincidentally, right about that same time, the USC job just dropped into my lap out of nowhere.
Hmm.
And I taught there for 24 years. I just retired from there like a
Oh,
little
wow.
over a year ago, or a year and a half ago,
Wow.
after teaching there for 24 years. So I did, you know, I had that going. Richard Smith called me, and he was head of the department at that time before Frank, and wanted to see if I wanted to come in and, you know, start off just teaching some private lessons. And so I did that for, you know, kind of a short time, and it just sort of worked into a full-time position there, you know, but not the kind of position where you had to be there every day. You know, most of those kind of college jobs, you're not down there 5 days a week like you would be if you're teaching a high school job or something like that. So there's still plenty of flexibility, and that was a really tremendous experience being there all that time and with all the guys. And so that had a lot to do with it. When Katie was 10, that's my daughter, I got a call from Terry Trotter who's, you know, Terry, I'm sure, one of the all-time best piano players ever.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and I was pretty blown away. He wanted me to go on the road with Natalie Cole, and I wasn't quite sure. I asked him, well, how much is she traveling and everything, because I didn't want to be gone for like 4 months and 3 months, you know. But hers was pretty broken up. Very first tour, and he said, and we're going to get to play out front. So that really intrigued me. And so for the first gig was like the Blue Note for 2 weeks over in Tokyo, and we did get to play. I've got a whole bunch of recordings off the board of the band playing like a couple of instrumentals out front, you know, and to get to play with Terry, and that whole band was killing. That it's the first time I met with John Bell's a guy. He just came on the band, and we ended up playing a lot together after that, and became really good friends. And Ralph Humphrey was the drummer. You don't get any better than that, you know. it's so the band was killing, you know. I mean, and she was doing mostly the jazz book then,
Uh-huh.
but they wanted someone. So a lot of the gigs I've gotten have been kind of because I've sort of been known to be a versatile guy that can do a lot of different things. I can play R&B rhythm. I can get different sounds, you know. I mean, I mostly dedicate myself now to, you know, this kind of thing primarily, you know, unless, you know, something comes up where I need to record something with somebody that's, you know, uses a different sound. But anyway, so I did go out with Natalie Cole then for a couple of years, or a little over 2 years, I think, and we did a lot of really cool gigs, and it was like I said, about probably 90% at least was her jazz book, and that did require a lot of reading. I'm a reader also, and because she had lots of charts and she played tons of different songs. Boy, she was not one to play the same songs every show.
Hmm.
She had a huge book of tunes, and she could always remember the lyrics to all of them. So she, yeah, she just sounded amazing. I mean, I think she's my favorite singer of all time. I mean, on the jazz book, just because, I mean, I listened to a few of these recordings I have. Every one of them sounds like a record take. I mean, they're perfect.
Yeah.
Like phrasing, intonation, sound,
Yeah.
almost flawless
Yeah.
in her live performances as well. Just how easy she sang that stuff. But she did want to do some of the rocking out stuff and some of the funky stuff that she did in her early part of her career. And so, yeah, we do some stuff usually toward the very end of the show where we'd rock out. You know, I'd play my jazz box on most stuff, but I'd take another kind of guitar, like a Strat or something with me also, so we could, could rock out. And there was even a song or two I think I played some slide guitar on that were kind of bluesy kind of tunes with her. But toward the end of when I was with her, she got the bug to want to try to do an R&B record again, which is fine, but she's such a good jazz singer. I really hated that she do that. And it was kind of a disastrous ending, and not really disastrous, but I felt bad that I tried to play on some recordings. She was experimenting with a bunch of different producers, and I played on a couple tunes, I think, and finally she ended up deciding she liked this producer in Atlanta. So she went and did the whole record down there, and none of that stuff ever didn't go as well as it probably could have, in the studio there. But and I don't think that record did much of anything, that R&B record, by that time I think people had already decided she's one of the greatest jazz singers of ever, and so. But anyway, I mean, she sounded good on anything, but I was sure fond of her singing. She did the standards.
Yeah. I saw her at Disney Hall, and that was my impression too. I actually hadn't thought of her really as a jazz singer per se, but when I saw her live, I realized, oh yeah, she's a jazz singer.
Yeah, her phrasing was just so natural on those kinds of tunes. It just seemed like she never ever sang anything that didn't sound almost perfect.
She was a beautiful singer. I have a funny story about John Belzeguy.
Oh, yeah.
When I met him,
Yeah.
I was in Costco, and I was in line, and I was in a moment of time where I thought, I want to talk to people more, like I want, like just people out in the world, He was standing behind me. I didn't know him. And I turned around and I looked at him and I said, "Do you like jazz?" And
wow, it's amazing you could say that.
Like, yeah. And I said, "Well, me too. I'm a jazz singer. I'm Cathy Segal-Garcia." And it turned out to be John Belzeguy.
Oh man, that's funny.
Meeting. It was one of the funniest meetings I've ever had, actually.
Thought you were totally psychic for sure. You like jazz? He's a great player, and he was a great guy to hang out with on the road too. Guy seems to know everything. He knows about a lot of different things.
And Ralph Humphrey, he's coming too. He's going to be. Let's see. I have Roy McCurdy coming, but Ralph Humphrey is going to be on July.
Oh, that's great, because Ralph is really brilliant speaker as well, and of course he's had some amazing experiences.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was just.
It's so amazing. I mean, I think that people watching this are probably struck by the amount of experiences that you've had, and that probably makes them think about what goes on behind the scene. We don't think about the guitar player with George Benson, we don't think about his whole career and how he came up in those bands, and that he was on the Merv Griffin show and playing with Melissa May. We don't think about that. We just we're there, we're experiencing it. It's great, you know.
Yeah.
But that's why that's another reason why I like doing these, because yeah, it gives you credit, you know, more credit, but also it's so interesting to know um, how that process was, you know, the process of coming to now, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I, yeah, I'll have people sometimes, ask, how did you learn all this stuff? Or two, when they're just talking about the music or whatever. And I never really have much of an answer. It's just like, I don't know, I've just played all my life and, and learned something from here and there. And it's all just like meshed into whatever it's meshed into.
Well, you kept doing it too, you know, and that was, you know, that's a lesson for everybody, you know, not just musicians, but it's, you know, keep doing it, keep doing
Oh
what
yeah,
you love.
well, you've got to love the process of doing it if you're going to get very good on an instrument. I mean, you got to have it, in your hands or work on your craft, and you got to love doing it enough to do it a lot. So fortunately, I mean, I still love playing. Yeah, I mean, and I'm actually really happy I played a chordal instrument, that I can play alone and feel like it's a complete thing, So.
Speaking of that, would you play and sing a song?
Oh, okay. I haven't played for
Only
anybody
if
in a
you
long
only
time.
if
We've
you
all been on vacation, right?
only if you want to. Yeah, I know. I invited some people over, and I thought, I wonder if I can still sing.
Uh,
I can, but it's, you know.
warm up, warm up. It's sticky today because it's kind of foggy here today, and yeah, we don't have sun in LA right now, so I can
Yeah.
feel the moisture. Let's see. Yeah, I've been working on. I always sang more, kind of bluesy tunes and so forth, and I've been working on a few more standards, but I've also tried to develop a few tunes that are not necessarily jazz tunes, but there's still some songs that I can play enough guitar on that it's, got that going too. So let's see. I'm trying to think. Maybe I'll play you one of those more offbeat ones that is not so much of a jazz tune, but one that's it's an old Everly Brothers song that I've come up with kind of a new arrangement on. I've done it a number of times. Let's can you hear that? Let's see. Kind of a simple tune, but I like this song. Let's see. So when I want you in my arms, and when I want you with all your charms, whenever I want you, all I have to do is dream, dream, dream. When I feel blue in the night and I need you to hold me tight, whenever I want you, all I have to do is dream, dream, dream. Oh, I can make you mine and taste your lips of wine anytime, night and day. Only trouble is, gee whiz, I'm dreaming my life away. I need you so that I could die. I love you so, and that is why whenever I want you, all I have to do is dream, dream, dream. marvelous, gee whiz, I'm dreaming miles away. I need you so that I could die. I love you so, and that is why whenever I want you, all I have to do is dream, 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 dream,
Yay.
I can sing those high notes when I'm warmed up.
Yeah, well, believe me, I understand. That was really beautiful. I love that. That's a really pretty arrangement. Yeah.
That's
And
kind
your
of fun,
singing
you
is
know,
great.
doing like some solo gigs because I've got a lot of jazz standards and it'll chord, little
Yeah.
things. So it helps if you're playing solo to be able to, unless you're playing for a real hard. If I'm doing a clinic or something where it's an audience of, that's more hardcore jazz,
Yeah.
I'll probably just do, the jazz tunes.
That was great. I love it. Yeah, I'd pay money to come hear you.
What was that? I didn't understand the last thing.
I said I'd pay money to come hear you.
Oh, all right. All right. If we ever have a gig again, well,
Maybe you ought to do like a little show on online.
yeah. I haven't done a live show yet online. Just been I've made a couple of 2 or 3 videos since the whole shutdown. And yeah, I did one couple with my wife, Francie. And then I did a version of In the Wee Small Hours of the Morning that I actually sang, and I played this little guitar that I have that Greg Brandt made for me. It's like a higher pitch guitar. It's about this long. It's really cool little instrument that I use for some stuff sometimes. Anyway.
Nice. I'm wondering, normally it's not great to play something from my computer, but I'm wondering if I can play what you and I and John did.
Yeah, that'd be great if you can do it.
Yeah, maybe Francie can tell us how the sound is,
Okay, she's still watching. Yeah.
Yeah. I think she is because she commented your song was dreamy.
Oh, okay, great. So I was
When your wife says the song is dreamy, that's good. Okay, so this is here. I can bring up.
That's a song that Cathy wrote, by the way. You didn't say that, but you wrote this song, right, for Barry?
I wrote this song for Barry Zweig, and I'm gonna show Barry
Great
Zweig.
song.
Thanks. Yeah, Barry Zweig. I love Barry Zweig.
We're trying to put this together remotely here. Right, I did the guitar on this here in my studio by myself, and then John put some bass on it, and his.
Let's see that was a lot of
if I
focus.
can picture there.
Yeah, this is what it's opening. This is Barry Zweig, our friend, and as I said, he passed away about 2.5, 3 months ago, something like that. And he, I don't know what it was I was talking to Mark Winkler about writing, and I woke up the next morning and I just immediately, it was early, my husband was still asleep, I went to the piano and I wrote that song.
All right, it's a good song. I like it a lot.
Thanks. And so what we did last week or so was I went to John Leftwich's studio, which is cool because I can just go right into the vocal booth. That's it. So I just went right in there. No masks even needed. And then we sent it over to Pat, and Pat put his part on, and then sent it back, and then John had his part. So I'm going to see if it sounds good on this. Can everybody hear that? Let me know. I can't forget you, the way your eyes lit up the room. I can't forget the way your smile embraced all who know you, the way your laughter touched all the hearts nearby. Your kindness touched all our lives and made us cry. I can't forget you. I'll always think of you and smile. I'll always hold you in my heart and feel the love that is you. And when I speak your name, I'll stop and brush a tear away. I won't forget you. You'll be with me always. Can't forget you. I'll always think of you and smile. I'll always hold you in my heart and feel the love that is you. And when I speak your name, I'll stop and brush a tear away. I won't forget you, not till my dying day. Wow, that was really pretty. You soloed beautifully. Really nice.
I,
You know, I just think it's I mean, yeah, it was when I'm not in love with the studio process, and so I always I just especially when the people aren't there with me, you know. So I'm
yeah,
surprised it came out really nicely, but it did. It was very sweet.
that whole process of not all being together, actually started happening quite a while ago, before this whole COVID
Yeah.
shutdown. I mean, just because of all the home studio, there have been like quite a few projects that I've just added guitar to here. I mean, most fun thing is always the camaraderie of musicians live
Yeah.
in the studio, or a live gig, but live in the studio also. That makes a studio experience really different than when you're just sent somewhere, or when you're called in and you go overdub your guitar part, or somebody sends you stuff here. It's fun doing that. I'm glad to be able to do it here, and I can get a great sound because I've got, you know, stuff I need to do that here at home. But there's just something really special about the hang, and just the way, you know, when the whole thing goes down, you know, kind of live.
Yeah, I mean that's one aspect of it, that when it gets captured, it's, you know, it's kind of like what I was saying in the very beginning. You didn't even have to turn around to the instrumentalist for me to know that your attention shifted. You know, it's there's something, you know, when you're together with people, which is why live music is so great to see, you know, because you get something else from it, you know.
Yeah, yeah. That well, the listening ability, you know, is something that mostly people develop from playing a whole lot, or, you know, maybe it comes like that for some people, but usually not. You know, I mean, you know, I mean, that's usually the thing with younger musicians, and myself too. When I was younger too, you know, just like developing the ability to just sort of widely listen without overly concentrating. It just sort of happens, you know, where you just sort of start to hear a broader picture. You know, it's easy for young players to not hear anything but what they're doing, sort of, you know, at a certain point.
Yeah, yeah. Um, by the way, Adam Levine is on and he says hi.
Adam, yeah, let's play a gig again soon. He's a great guitar player too. It lives up the Central Coast. We played it. I've gone up there and played with him a few times, 2 or 3 times at least. Yeah, it's always a lot of fun. He's a great player and a great guy.
I was thinking about, you know, your stint at USC, and I was thinking of Joe DiOrio too, which I've asked Joe to be on this show, but he's, you know, sometimes he's kind of shy, kind of like Ted Green was, you know, like, no, I don't know. I don't know if people really want to hear what I have to say. It's like, yes, they do. They
Yes,
really do.
Joe.
Um, did you take his spot, or did he? Was
No, Bruce Foreman took his. I was already there. I taught quite a while at the same, you know, while he was there, uh, also. And yeah, when he left, that's when Bruce came on.
what a strong guitar
Oh yeah,
thing is at USC.
it was really strong. And, you know, one of the best things too was that we all got along really good. It was, uh, you know, great group of guys. We like to hang out, Richard and Frank and I, Tim and Nick, and you know, Adam Del Monte when he was with us. It was a monstrous, like, flamenco and classical player that was in our department too, rather than the classical department they have there, which also has some monsters in it. But yeah, USC has a really faculty of a lot of professional players. So it's pretty neat thing there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you teach guitar only, or did you teach theory classes?
I did quite a few different things. We all taught. The beauty of having that many teachers there is that no one was stuck with the same teacher for 4 years or however long they were there. So just rotate guys around. They could be with me 1 year or 1 semester or whatever, and then somebody else. And but I also, in addition to all of us dividing up private lessons, I did a core class that was a junior level class that had a lot of different things in it. The cool thing is I was totally free to design my own classes and everything. Basically everything I did there was stuff I designed. I did that. And then I also coach an ensemble, some earlier ones. And then at a certain point, this is one of the highlights of my whole USC experiences, that I started the New West Guitar Group.
Oh.
Who are incredible now. If you haven't heard them, you should get some of those guys on the show.
Yeah.
But that started off as a quartet, 4-guitar ensemble with no bass and drums. Most of our ensembles that use bass and drums, we were going to be more like a, you know, kind of group that not like a classical group because it was more jazz, but without bass and drums. And we had John Story, who you should definitely have on the show.
Yeah.
Totally thriving, younger guitar player, who's in his 30s now, 35. Perry Smith, also great guitar player, is doing really well in New York now. And then we had Brady Cohan and Matt Roberts, who goes by Matt Hayes now. Those were the four guys. A couple of the guys ended up eventually leaving. Brady Cohan got real busy. He was on American Idol all the time. Really good looking guy. So he got tons of camera stuff and a great player too. So he left. Matt Hayes went on to do more of his own thing too. And they had a couple, and now they have Will Brahm, who you probably know, who's a monster young guitar.
He was on this show too.
Yeah, he is so good, man. I mean, all three of those guys. So they are really happening now. It's a trio, and they're so tight. But I think it was 2003. I took them down to the North Texas Jazz Festival. I entered them in that. We went down there. We won the combo division with 4 guitars, no bass and drums. Piano. And they got to perform that night with John Pizzarelli, who was going to be the guest. Whoever that combo winner was going to open the show for him. And they got to meet him and do that. And then we got a grant for those guys because they had done this and they were really exceptional. USC was giving out some money for, they gave, I think, half of it to one of the classical groups, and they gave us this group to launch them as a group. And they went to Japan, and then they've continued, they're since that time. I mean, those guys are like 35 years old now. So they were undergrad students at that time, and so I've stayed. John Story's probably my best friend of all the students that have been there, I would say, as far as someone that I keep in touch with and called me. Even, way after that, he'd call me and, can I come over and play these mix, see what you think of this new project, and they've done quite a few records now, and I don't know if you've heard them live, but
I have, yeah.
Tremendous group, and all three of those guys are killing now. I mean, Will Brahm is a great addition to that because he's great, and John Story, has got a thriving career. He's a good guy he would be a great guy to talk to as far as somebody that's managed to figure out, how do I make a living and thrive in this business?
Yeah.
He's got the Jeff Goldblum gig, but he does lots of other stuff too. So anyway, that's cool. That was a big highlight there. I also, another class I did for quite a few years, I was kind of way ahead of the curve in some ways of some of the stuff they're doing now. Because I've written a lot of songs, and I've done a lot of music library music also. A whole bunch of songs and pieces for a couple of music libraries. A lot of them are still in play that happened a long time ago. And so I had done a lot of that stuff and other kinds of recording, and already was doing home studio recording a long time ago. So I developed a grad level class that I did for a number of years, where we had mock-ups, usually about 10 projects, and they would be like, a commercial, an underscore for a PBS. So I just, mocked up all these different kinds of projects, a music library piece, this and that, and maybe a piece that, maybe one piece that demonstrates more what you want to do or whatever. But it was and they all had to have some kind of recording gear, and that got a lot more sophisticated over the years. There were a couple of hilarious things though. And I remember in a couple of the later classes, one of our students didn't have his gear together. He'd moved here from another country, and he brought in a couple of demos that at the first part of the class that he made in his car on an iPad. Somehow, so, but mostly they're, a lot of them are really good stuff. We had like one of the guys, like Adam Hawley, I don't know if you know him. He's like one of the top smooth jazz artists now. I mean, he's a frontline touring guy now, and had like 2 or 3 #1 records in that genre now already. He was in that class, as well as him. I remember being a private student of mine when he was 18, but he stayed at USC for 8 years. He got an undergrad, a master's, and then a DMA. But so I remember he did that class too, and he was already headed. I remember, hearing some of his early demos as well too. You know, there's been a lot of guys come through that are now like thriving musicians, which is really cool to see. Some of the guys that have, you know, been out of school a few years now, and you know, there's quite a few of them that are making it.
Wow, that's really interesting.
That's rewarding. That, yeah, in this day and age.
I was just listening to this record. I'm sure you're familiar with this record.
See if I can. Oh yeah, yeah. Is that Anthony's thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, yeah. I know it's great. You'd probably watch the video, right?
Actually, I don't think I have. I
Really?
had him on, but we just touched on that, and I don't
Oh,
think I've seen the video. It's Steve Cardenas, who used to live here,
yeah.
Chico Pinero, and Julian Lage.
Couldn't get anybody good.
Yeah, man.
Uh,
Oh man, this
That's a tremendous piece of music, and if you see the video, it's really impressive because they're also using these special John Monteleone guitars that are
yeah.
all acoustic in front of mics, and then for each movement they switch guitars. So they trade the guitars around. They've got these
Wow.
4 amazing guitars, and yeah, it's kind of cool to see them.
Who thought of that? I wonder. You know, just curious.
Oh, you mean a switching guitars?
Yeah, yeah.
I think those guitars, I might be a little bit off on the story here, but I think they were for each season, those 4 guitars. And so this thing, I think, was written around that kind of concept. So, but I don't know about the switching. Anyway,
That's amazing. Anthony Wilson is an amazing.
he is.
He's-
Anthony's one of my
he's an
absolute
fusion
favorite
artist.
guitar
Yeah.
players ever born. He's awesome. Yeah.
We had a great conversation. It was very, you know, spiritual, and
Yeah.
yeah, he's yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, all of you guys are just you and everybody just, you know, great people, wonderful people. Like Catalina was saying yesterday, she misses people so much, the musicians hanging around, and
Yeah.
you know,
Hopefully we'll get to do it again here at some
oh
point.
God, I hope so. Yeah.
They're sort of opening there, I think, a little bit. I don't know. I actually got a call from George Kahn actually about seeing. I've been working on an album with him. One of those videos we might want to
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
at before we're done here of his session. We started this album, this quartet record, George and David Hughes on bass and Alex Acuna on drums, and we cut some tunes just before this whole shutdown happened, and we would have been finished this. We're going back in the studio on the 8th of over at Tally, you know, Tally Sherwood Studio, Triton.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to go back in there on the 8th of July. So that's coming up soon to cut, I think, just, you know, 3 or 4 more songs or so.
Yeah.
Finish
Yeah,
this
I'd
thing
like
up, but he made some. He had a film crew down there when we cut these other tracks, and so one of those links was one of the ones he just put up, a song I actually did the arrangement on, "You and the Night and the Music." I'm helping him kind of produce this record and so forth. So I've done 2 or 3 of the arrangements.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it.
That's a fun little
Yeah.
group. Yeah, we've done some live gigs too.
Let's see. Yeah, you know, I was talking to Catalina yesterday, and she didn't quite understand how the baked potato had opened, because I actually went to the baked potato, me and Dan Davila, last week. You know, when they had like their grand opening, and you know, they had a lot less people in there. It was, you know, probably less than half the room. You know, how they spaced everybody out, and the piano, it was the guy who sounds like Weather Report, the pianist.
Oh, yeah, Scott.
Yeah,
Lee.
Scott Kinsey.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was his group, and I don't know, just when the music started, I felt this blow off of like tension from my body. It was great. But anyway, I don't know, you know, Catalina wasn't like, she had literally the day before yesterday talked to the government, and they said no.
Yeah, that may have changed. Yeah, because George had called or sent out a message here. Oh, maybe it was a week or 2 ago, wondering if the band would be into. I forgot what the date was. It might not have been until August sometime to see if we'd want to do a album release thing there. And I wasn't sure. Alex was definitely not sure about it. He was sort of thinking, no, I'm not ready yet. And I've been a little hesitant too. Greg Karukas wanted to do a gig like 2 weeks ago down at Spaghettini. And everybody in the band kind of bailed on it. I just said, I just feel that's kind of a low ceiling place. I didn't feel real safe. They just done all this opening up down in Orange County. So no one in the band, and Mike Paulo, who was going to play, he said, I can't play the saxophone with a mask on. So,
Exactly.
so
Okay, well, I'm going to play this. Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
All right. Alex Acuna. Woohoo.
Yeah. David Hughes.
Nice. It's unusual for me to hear Alex on drums.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't usually hear him on drums. I was kind of looking forward to. I'll check out these myself, but did I see? Uh, no, I guess I didn't. I thought I saw with Natalie Cole. So sometimes I'm happy with Barry Zweig and Sandy
Oh
Graham.
yeah. Yeah. This might be a fun one. Let me tell you about this
Okay.
real quick. Yeah. This this goes right along with it's fun to play music pretty much wherever you are. I mean, whether you're playing in a big place or just anywhere. We're playing at a pet store. You know Paul Gormley, probably bass player. He
Yes.
he and his wife opened this pet store in West Los Angeles at this
Oh,
time, and Bruce Foreman at this time was doing this, challenging everybody to do these Route 66
oh
things
yeah.
too. So that's like right at the end of Route 66. It's where their store was. So Paul and I were gonna. They were just. It was kind of a grand opening for their store. I said, "Yeah, I'll come down and we'll play in the store there." And so then Barry comes by. He's on his way to another gig. He comes by, sits in, and Paul Krybik comes by, brings a snare drum, and Paul, unfortunately, is off to the side, so you can't really see him. And then Sandy Graham, who I'd never met before, she's a singer in there, and you probably know her.
I do.
She is hilarious. I love this. This makes me laugh so much because she's singing like she could be at Carnegie Hall or something. She's like we were in this pet store. But check out Barry. He looks like he's having so much fun. He starts laughing with Gormley during part of it, and it sets up a great intro. Anyway, I thought I'd set the story up there. So,
Great. Yeah. What a great story. And
what a pet store.
this is our Barry Zweig.
Yeah.
Okay. This should be fun.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
The coolest pet store in LA.
What a scene. Cars going by. Yeah, Barry.
All right, all right.
Sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm my disposition depends on you. I never mind the rain
No.
or the sky when I can find the sun. Sometimes I love you, sometimes I hate you. But when I hate you, it's 'cause I love you. That's how I am. So what can I do?
Very.
Woo! She sure is a swinging singer too, isn't
She
she?
is.
Yeah, sorry. Uh-oh, come on, man.
Ah, what happened?
Oh, I don't know. Somehow it let's see.
That's a
Somehow,
different video there.
yeah, let me see what I can do about that. I don't know what happened there. Uh, let's see. Let me see if I can start around the same. Was this
Not close enough.
oh, yeah. Oh man. You know, that makes me feel so good. God, that just makes me feel great, you know?
Yeah, it cracks me up still. It just, it's like having fun playing a cool tune,
Yeah, and all you guys, I mean, all of you are just so much a part of my past, you know? It's just like, you know, a stamp of part of me, you know? It's just great. I mean, I don't even have to watch Paul. I mean, his groove is so
Yeah.
great, you know? He's just such a great drummer.
Oh, he is. Yeah.
And Paul Gormley, you know, just great. That was really nice. And Sandy was totally swinging.
I know.
What a swinging
Yes.
singer.
Totally into it.
Yeah. Well, I know it's been 2 hours.
Woo. Boy,
So
before this, I was thinking, what are we going to talk about for 2 hours?
I know. In the beginning, it's kind of daunting, but actually, it's a hang, you know, and you know, the fact that I like to find out about you and you know, what you have done and how you came up and all that stuff. I really have a very nice extra viewpoint on you now.
No. Well, All right, I guess that's good. Thanks for having me. It was fun. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I think while I leave, you can sign off or whatever, but I want to play Quiet. And can you just tell us about Quiet?
Oh, quiet time.
Quiet Time, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was just a song that I had on one of my albums that kind of came under the radar, but I always really liked this song and loved the band at this time that I had on this. It was some guys I'd been playing with quite a bit. Bill Cantos on piano, Ernest Tibbs on bass, John Ferraro on drums.
Hmm.
Gary Herbig played the flute on this. I did I leave anybody out? I think that's it. So
Cool.
anyway, I just like this tune, and I put together this video quite a while back of just various pictures, not necessarily current pictures, but mostly my wife and daughter,
Yeah,
and me in some of them. But
yeah, yeah. Well, thank you, Pat.
thank you,
Thanks
and
for sharing your time.
I'll see you soon. I hope.
I hope so too. Maybe, maybe if you and John and I get, like keep doing this, we'll make it actually a whole record.
Hey,
We'll like bring out another song. Hey, let's try this one.
that sounds good. Before I leave, I wanted to tell you that that record you did with Larry Koontz and Josh Nelson is really beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're singing, and those guys played so wonderfully on that. They really worked great together. So that's a great record.
Thank you.
I tell everybody to buy that record too.
That's how I said I'm not a super fan of being in the studio. I just singing in the studio. I just never quite get super comfortable with it. But that record actually was nice because we were in Tallies, you
Oh
know,
yeah. Oh, you
and
did the same
the three
studio.
of us, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was felt good actually. And I mean, how can you not feel good with those guys?
Yeah. Yeah.
But thank you, I appreciate that.
All right.
And just want to tell people that tomorrow is a great pianist who Pat knows, Mitch Foreman.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Burning pianist.
Yeah, he's really incredible.
I have a video of not where you can. It's not posted, but I have a video of him at my house for a Christmas party get together where he's playing at our piano with the left hand. He's playing the Christmas song, and with the right hand, he's playing trombone at the same time. It's
Play
hysterical.
accordion too.
He's somehow able to prop the trombone up on his leg and still play that, and he's playing all this hip stuff in the left hand by at the same time.
What a mind, right? Jeez, you
Yeah.
have to do that. That's funny. And then Tuesday I have Tim Weston on.
Oh, great! He'll have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
That's
For
great.
those of you who don't know Tim Weston's name, he's a guitarist and composer, arranger, orchestrator. He lives with Shelby Flint, who's one of our all-time favorite singers, and he also has the distinction of being the son of two very respected jazz people, Paul Weston and Joe Stafford, who also did Jonathan and Darlene Edwards, which was this comedy thing that they came up with where Darlene sang out of tune but sang the song, but slightly out of tune, and Jonathan added bars, and it was pretty funny. I'm sure I'll have to play at least one or two of those cuts while he's on.
Yeah.
And then the next day, Christian Jacob and Pinky Winters. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll have I have the next few weeks scheduled with people. And again, thanks, Pat Kelley with a Kelley.
Thank you for getting that.
I stress that because I wasn't doing it before.
Happened hundreds of times, probably. Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks, Pat. Enjoy your day. And
Thank you. I will.
hug Francine. And and that's it, I guess.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, bye. I'm going to play Quiet Time with Pat Kelley on the way out.
Thanks.
Sure. Thank you, Pat. That was really beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful footage, too. Okay.
See you soon.
Thank you a million. Have a good day. Bye,
Yeah.
everybody.